Welcome to Food Talk for Health, because you really are what you eat. Here is your host, Tonia King.
My guest today is celebrity dietitian, nutritional therapist, and author, Kim Shapira. Thanks for joining me, Kim.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Today we're talking about your brand new book, This Is What You're Really Hungry For. This fascinates me. 6 simple rules to transform your relationship with food to become your healthiest self. Give me the scoop on why you put this book together.
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question, but I'll do my best to talk as fast as I can. I'm a registered dietitian. I originally got into nutrition because I was a sick kid, and a doctor mentor of mine had told me in high school that food could make a person healthy or sick. And so for me, that was like my aha moment where, like, oh, I can control my health, and I'm going to. And I'm imagining that everyone else in the world doesn't want to feel the way that I feel. So that sounds like a perfect job for me. And then I got into my practice realizing that it's so much more than about what foods to eat. And one of my very first clients, I had helped her lose 30 pounds. I had put her on a diet. She had gotten off her cholesterol medication and her blood pressure medication. And I felt like exactly what I had set out to do. And then she told me she was going to gain the weight back because her husband wanted to be intimate with her all the time. And she had been molested as a child. And so it was right in that moment where I realized it's not about the food. And then as I started realizing my clients had these patterns with the way they were eating, I started noticing they were the same way that I was shopping. And whereas every emotion led me to think buying something new was a good idea, people were feeling the same way about food. And if I could work on healing myself, then I could have a way in to really help people become their healthiest self. And so for me, it became simply looking at, what do I really need right now? And if I don't really need it, let me put it on hold and see what happens when I come back to it. And so when that started working for me with shopping, I started applying it to food. And this is the beginning of how my 6 simple rules came to be. And yeah, that's the backstory.
People hear the word diet, and it really can turn you off.
Yeah, I dedicated an entire chapter to the word diet, the word fat, and the word calories, only because, when we become emotionally triggered, it's like we stop moving forward. And the whole point of what I want to do with people is get them to move forward. So we really need to understand their feelings about that. But truly, the word diet means lifestyle.
It makes
not
sense.
Restriction. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the 6 simple rules in detail.
Okay.
So let's start with number 1.
Okay. So the first rule is long and there's many parts. And what you should know is that if you follow these rules, all 6 of them, and each part at about 90%, you will be able to lose about 1 to 3 pounds a week. If you follow the rules at about an 80%, you'll lose about a half a pound to a pound. If you follow the rules at about a 70%, you're going to stay the same weight, which is actually winning. And if you follow the rules at about a 60%, you're actually going to be in a weight gain cycle. So rule number 1, and you should pay attention as I go through them to where you're having a visceral reaction, because that's the emotional trigger. That's the ping you're getting that keeps you from moving forward. So rule 1 is to eat when you're physically hungry, to take your normal portion, to cut it in half, to wait 15 minutes, and to come back to see if you need more food. So this is where we're really dealing with the psychology and the physiology of why we eat rather than what we eat, right? So when we are in the first 6 years of our lives, we develop these emotional triggers. And any time that we go through something traumatizing, we develop a new emotional trigger. And what happens when we are triggered is where our mind kind of leaves our body and we no longer think food is fuel or nutrition. We think food is fun, comfort, entertainment, or even the enemy. And so this separates the physical and the emotional. So you can just be in the physical part of your body just like you know when you have to pee, and just like you don't run to the closest toilet, but you take a second and think, do I have to go right now? Can I wait 30 minutes to finish this phone call? Right. And of course, you can have to pee very badly, and that can create some nervous, some narrow mindedness. But in general, you've never really stressed about finding a toilet, and you've successfully found one, a lot of the times, even if it's uncomfortable. So that's what hunger is. It's not scary, it's not painful, it's isolated to your stomach. And it's based on these hormones that are detecting it's time to eat. Simple.
It's a brain gut connection.
Yes, you're right. It is 100%. And our stomach is giving our brain about 60% of our information, which kind of leads to rule number 2. But not sure if you have any questions about rule number 1, but we can move on to rule number 2.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So rule number 2 is to eat what you love, with the caveat that the food has to love you back. Now, there are tons of, again, these emotional triggers. And when I say eat what you love, most people totally fear that I'm saying to them, yes, eat the foods that you've restricted or foods that you're calling bad. But it's actually, the idea is to start seeing food as food and to stop labeling food as good, bad, healthy, unhealthy, I should, I shouldn't, but to start recognizing that sometimes when we restrict, we binge. Not sometimes, almost every time. And really, the rule is to eat when you're hungry. So you eat what you love when you're hungry. And I would say most people who are thinking about eating some cake or ice cream aren't actually hungry.
Yeah, because there's something in that brain that's saying, I just want that sweet treat.
Yeah. And so we didn't talk about rule 0, but that's actually knowing where your mind is before you eat, but we can get to that at the end. But the idea with rule number 2 is to understand I'm in a relationship with food, and some of the behaviors in this relationship are toxic. And I'm not sure why I'm allowing it to continue. But to allow yourself to be in a new relationship where maybe like my 12-year-old self really needed to be able to escape to the idea of buying something new. And that served me, that protected me. But my 51-year-old self doesn't need that anymore. I have tools. And so I know that if my mind thinks I need to go shopping or needs food, I actually am seeing that as an alarm going off. And it's an opportunity for me to come back into my body to say, why am I thinking about this? Is it because I'm hungry? Is it because I need a dress for this occasion? Right? So I can be really present. And food can make us sick or healthy. And so really understanding that food I think I love may not love me back, and not to be connected to what is healthy for the rest of the world, but to totally personalize my experience and to know that I have the ability to heal my gut so all food can love me back once I stop seeing it or sensationalizing it.
It is a real mindset, isn't it?
It
It
is.
really is.
It starts with that
And
for
and
sure.
it's not that easy for a lot of folks to think about it in this way. So, maybe having your book, I think, is a really good guide and a little bit of a push to say, let's look at the whole thing a little bit differently.
Yes. I mean, that's my hope, right? Like two things can be true at the same time, but really understanding what is your mindset and why you think one way. And I believe that, if we are not curious, then we're in a state of failure. And if we think we already know what we need to do, we're also in a state of failure. We need to be present, right? So I can't tell you how many people are already worried about what they're going to have on their girls' night next Thursday or what's going to be for dinner tomorrow night. Why do they have to be worrying about that rather than be concentrating on the moment they're in? It's always worked out, right? And when we plant these seeds of worry, we're already practicing failure. And so the more that we can become present, the more that we're engaged with our own physical sensations, the better we're going to do.
What rule are we on next?
We are on rule number 3, which is eat without distractions, which is
Oh,
perfect.
yeah.
So we can have physical distractions, right? Like a TV or an iPhone or a magazine or homework or a computer. We can
Right.
have emotional distractions like a deadline. I could be in physical pain. I could be frustrated at what's going on with the election. Who knows? We eat because of cravings and we eat because the food is in front of us. But going forward, I really only want you to eat because you're hungry. And I want you to trust that the food will be there when you need it to be there.
That is some great heavy thought process right there.
Yeah. You know what happened is I was on the phone with my mom years and years ago, and I was trying to get off the phone. And I said, I got to run to Bloomingdale's. They're having a sale and I need to get this thing. And she laughed at me. And I was like, that's obnoxious. What's going on? And she's like, Kim, you know, you're running to a sale, but Bloomingdale's has a sale every week. And it was like one of those moments where I was like, that can't be true. And it was way before we had computers or we could actually see that there was a sale anywhere and everywhere. And then when she planted that seed, I went to that curious place and said, let me see if that's actually true. And it turns out it was. And so that helped me feel safe that I didn't need to put my life on hold or run to get something. And, you know, the truth is, I could get it at any department store at this point. I can most likely find what I need on sale when I need it. And also, the same applies to food. There's food on every corner. We're one, you know, Postmates or Uber, you know, delivery away from the next meal or Instacart. Like we have so many abilities to get food. And, you know, we can also have it on our desk. We can also have it 20 feet away in our refrigerator. Like we have the ability to have it there, yet we have this fear that we don't have enough.
Interesting. Wow. What are we up to? Number 4 now?
Rule number 4, we need 10,000 steps every single day,
Ooh.
which, you know, the recommendations really are about 7,000 to help prevent sudden death by 50% and to reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and all sorts of other diseases. Moving your body, I mean, you hear the word steps, 10,000 steps or steps, but it's really 10,000 movements. We need to move our hands when we talk. We need to be fidgety. We need to get up and use bathrooms on different floors. What this does is it helps balance our circadian rhythms, our wake and our sleep cycles. It helps our digestion. It helps our mood. It helps us maintain our weight. Very important. So 7,000 is great, but I'm always recommending 10 because I would tell you almost every one of my clients calls me and says, I want to lose weight. I've failed on a diet before. And I always try and change their goal to you actually don't want to lose weight. You want to create a lifestyle where you're practicing the habits to maintain the weight loss.
Yes. Interesting. Yes.
Yeah. And so that's where the 10,000 steps are like, you may not be there right now, but you're going to be there by the time we're done.
Well, you know, it's interesting because now we have things like Fitbits and all of our Apple Watch, all these devices that can count our steps for us so much easier. We never used to
Yes.
have that before.
It's true. You're right. And our phone has been keeping track all along. So there's an app on our phone called Health. It's a white app with a red heart, and it's been keeping track all along.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's just you need that extra little push to remember to move.
I mean, please move.
Yeah.
Please move. Yeah. We need it for longevity. We need it for endurance to be able to carry our groceries. I mean, we need to be active. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to number 5.
Rule number 5 is to drink 8 cups of water every single day. So, you know, our bodies are between 60, I would say between 50 and 70% water, hopefully closer to 60. And we have about 100 trillion cells, and they're about 43% water. And we can easily get dehydrated, you know, through talking, through sweating, through urine, through feces, all these different ways. And if we don't eat enough carbohydrates or on a low carb diet, then we're not actually hydrating properly. And then we feel sluggish and fluish, and we could have headaches and we have more inflammation. So water is a way that we naturally detox and makes us feel good. When we don't drink enough water, our liver has to kind of kick in and say, oh my gosh, you know, we're more efficient than that. Let me help you. And then what happens is nobody really helps the liver. And the liver's job is to metabolize fat, triglycerides, cholesterol, body fat. And so when you don't drink enough water, you start seeing a rise in these numbers. And that's the opposite of health.
Many times they say you should drink at least a glass or two even before you eat.
Yes. And I would say it could be dependent upon how you feel. So if you're somebody who suffers from heartburn or diarrhea, I wouldn't go that route because you're giving your body a vehicle for that to come up or to go out.
Right.
And so then I would recommend waiting at least 20 minutes till after you eat. But whatever trick you need to get that water in is what you need to do. And one way, for a lot of people who do what I call, fishing trips or walk-bys in the kitchen, put a really pretty pitcher of water with a really beautiful glass. And every time you come to the kitchen, just create a new habit of pouring yourself some water to help get those 8 cups and to put some space between the thought to eat and the action to eat and really be hungry when you eat.
Yes, that's all, again, the brain trying to give you that little
Yes.
bit of a push. And, many times you can put fresh lemon or people put cucumbers and different
Yeah.
herbs and whatnot in a pitcher, which might enhance you to pour that water, maybe a
Yeah.
little
Do
bit more.
anything you need. Anything you
Yeah.
need. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree.
All
Yeah.
right. Cool.
Yeah.
Number 6. What are we at?
Okay.
Number
Look at
6.
us flying through them.
I
Rule number
know.
6 is to get 7 hours of sleep. So the average American right now is getting about 6.5 hours. And that's not enough sleep. That actually raises our cortisol level. Now, of course, we know cortisol is important because it helps us run from the lion that has come into the room. It also helps us wake up. But right now, we're about 90% in fight or flight and about 10% in like rest and digest in our physical bodies. We're chronically stressed, and not getting enough sleep leads to more inflammation and more chronic stress. And of course, a lot of people are hearing this saying, I know I'm stressed, that's why I can't sleep. And so it's really looking at your behaviors. Are you having problems falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up unrested? What is your caffeine intake like? And a lot of people are working out harder than they need to, which is causing a higher stress level. So really kind of honoring what your body needs and getting into a routine. Just like, with babies or young kids, the doctor or pediatrician will say, don't miss the window where they're tired. We also have that window. And sometimes we override it because we want to stay up later. We want to hang out with a partner. We want to do whatever. And by doing that, we're disrupting our release of melatonin and we're disrupting our sleep schedule. And anytime that we change our sleep from 1 hour or 2 hours, like maybe I go to bed an hour later, or maybe I sleep in, or I hit the snooze button. Anytime we do this, we're actually creating a sensation of jet lag in our body. And so it takes about 3 days to recover, and we want to be as consistent with our sleep as possible to feel our best.
Now, let me ask you something about that, because if your biorhythm is such that you have been sleeping 6.5 hours
Yeah.
every night for a very, very long time, and you
Yeah.
wake up rested,
Yeah.
then how can you say that that's not enough if you're feeling good, if you're still feeling good with that amount?
Yeah. No, I think there are some people who do feel well, especially if it's been consistent. I think you get in a problem when you have like night workers or when you have like teenagers or college kids,
Right.
even young adults, a lot of people. I mean, moms who wait for their children to go to sleep before they've already surpassed their exhaustion state, right? A lot of people are tired. And when we're tired and we're not getting enough melatonin released, melatonin's job, we don't want to take it over the counter. We want to naturally produce it. But its job is a hormone, but it's also an antioxidant. It goes into every one of our cells and it detoxes us. It's how we lower our inflammation. And so when we don't get enough sleep, we actually wake up inflamed. And so maybe you feel rested because maybe you're running on adrenaline, or maybe you really are rested, and that would be the best case scenario. But if you're feeling inflamed in any way, it could be due to not getting between 7 and 9 hours of sleep, or getting more than 9 hours of sleep, right? So there's this like tipping point on either direction. And by just adjusting your sleep, staying in bed a little longer, having, dark, what am I saying? Curtains,
Right,
um,
right.
just more relaxation before you go to sleep, reminding yourself that you're a good sleeper, will lower inflammation. And a person who has inflammation, they are just less motivated to take care of themselves in all the ways and all the rules. They would be more prone to be averaging 60 to 70% in the rules as opposed to like the 80 or 90%.
We're talking with dietitian Kim Shapira about her brand new book, This Is What You're Really Hungry For. So tell me, you've developed these 6 simple rules. Do you consider it a long-term process to really make a difference as compared to a quick fix?
Yeah, I don't think that quick fixes, that's like the opposite of what I'm looking for.
Right.
So somebody might have 10 pounds to lose, somebody might have 20 pounds or 40 pounds. I think where we get in trouble is this idea of perfection. And I want to change the idea of diet culture away from, something short term or restriction to something lifestyle like or long term, right? And so each one of these rules is a practice. And what happens is we actually sleepwalk through almost 47% of our day, which means my mind is going to sleep most of the day and it's going to respond just like it did the day before. So I think you said earlier, you think about chocolate around the same time every day. We're so habitual, we're so consistent, and we sleepwalk. And so what if you had the thought chocolate is a great idea and you agreed and you kept going forward, but you didn't have the chocolate, right? What cycles does that break? To actually be awake, alert, intentional, to see your thoughts as only thoughts and not as a true demand that it's time to, go and get chocolate. I think it's a practice, and I think we cannot predict the storm, and we don't know when we're going to become emotionally triggered. But our objective is the same. How resilient am I, and how fast can I get back to the practice, right?
Wow, it's a very fascinating book, and your plan is really interesting. How do we find you on social media to find out more?
Yes, thank you. You can find me on all the social sites at Kim Shapira Method. Any and all social sites, Kim Shapira Method.
And your book is available, I would assume, everywhere.
It's available everywhere, yes.
All right, the brand new book, This Is What You're Really Hungry For. Kim Shapira, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Food Talk for Health with Tonia King. Thanks for joining us. Eat well to be well.
We hope you'll subscribe to this podcast. Thanks for listening to Food Talk for Health.